Hey, this is the Average Fellas podcast. I hope you got your coffee ready. Let's talk some business.
Had a vision of success and where I wanted to be.
And I had never owned my own business. I had never worked for myself.
And when I was ready, I told him, I'm sorry I had to leave your company, but I need to start my own dream.
Because it's a business. We're a business too.
Right.
Like, invest in yourself. Don't just.
I mean, they replaced the refrigerator with like one of those fancy coffee makers.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Average Fellas podcast. I'm your host, Zodizach, coming to you live all the way from Riverside, California on another beautiful Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Monday morning. Hey, drop by the website, www.averagefellas.com for your specialty craft roast coffee. That's specialty craft roast coffee with notes of honey, fig, and tobacco. The stuff is primo. I promise you're going to love it. And if you need a simple graphic or if you need some help designing your website, let us know. We can help you out with that kind of stuff. All right, guys. Well, we are back with the Monday chats, and I'm excited to get into this episode, guys. Hey, got that all done in less than a minute. Super fast. I'm impressed with myself every time I do that, guys. But we're back with this conversation with the fellas here. I'm excited to get in this chat again. We're talking about web traffic strategies and web presence, and just sort of kind of throwing some things at each other. Some conversation that's been going on for a couple weeks now, and I'm joined with Daniel and Mark. What's going on, guys? Let's start here with Mark. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. Living the dream.
There you go, man. Hey, man, that's all we could ask for these days. How about you, Daniel, man? How you doing?
I mean, I gotta second that. Yeah, living the dream on another Monday.
Just another man. Wait, that's manic. I was gonna say magic. Well, that didn't work. My bad.
It feels a little manic and a little magic, so I'll take the remix.
There you go. So I'm excited to kind of get in this conversation. I want to pick up the conversation, and then we're talking about web traffic and like web strategies, that just kind of putting things out there from a content creator, data analysis, and Google growth marketing. Right? Is that right? Or Google digital growth marketing? What am I talking about?
I mean, but effectively what I do is I'm a little slave for Google that Google doesn't have to pay.
Okay, there you go.
At a point, right, they own so much of the online ecosystem, at least the more popular channels. So at a certain point, you're really just working for Google.
Right. Right. No, that's true. So I just kind of want to jump back into the conversation and give somebody a shot. I don't know if you guys want to like start it off or not. It's up to you. Mark, if you want to you want to start the conversation off today?
Yeah, sure. I was doing a little bit of follow-up from the last time we talked, and really I just kind of wanted to pick Daniel's brain about keywords and phrases, but strategies for basically coming up with your topic buckets. So my idea was that, and from what I was reading, that you want to take keywords that you see you're already getting found for, right? Mm-hmm. And then you want to basically build your topics based on specific keywords and phrases, rather than the reverse of trying to topic first and then add in all of the details, all of the keywords.
Mm-hmm. So I think definitely the first step with sort of keywords, unless you're starting from absolute ground zero where you don't have anything, is to sort of audit where you're at and to dig in and see like where you're getting as much traffic as you can. Like Google Search Console is a great place for that. Like I'd mentioned just before, I'm a bit of a Google slave. So if all the systems I mentioned are very Google heavy, that's my life. If there's a better, different way to not become just Google's little servant person, please let me know in the comments. I say that like I'm being held hostage. It's actually fantastic. The Google systems are wonderful. I really enjoy digging through them more than the average person. But so yeah, I think you start with figuring out what people are finding you for. And there will just be some natural evolution there, I think, just with whatever you're doing. So we'll just use the Average Fellas Coffee because that's an easy one. And if we can say Average Fellas Coffee at least 100 times during this podcast, we should, because that coffee is delicious.
Average Fellas Coffee. Average Fellas Coffee.
Average Fellas Coffee. So like you're never going to escape like coffee. But if you want to dig into that a little more, is it like craft coffee or craft roast or roasted coffee or local coffee? because coffee, chances are everyone is fighting for coffee. Like coffee's got to be a blood sport of a keyword.
Yes, it is.
Like
Right.
I'm sure like you must rank on page like 1,000 because there's so much damn coffee
Yes.
for just that word. But once you start getting a little more specific, and you can figure out what attributes and what words within that are tying tightly to your brand and what you're trying to get done, so that whenever people are searching those and get the average fellow served up to them on the first page, probably hopefully above the fold, because people are lazy. I don't even the bottom page of Google is like the fourth page of Google. You know, it's like
Yeah.
no man's land. Like why? It's crazy to think how entitled to information we feel as users, and then when we're trying to do it as creators, we're like, come on, go to the second page, do it for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Please God. It's like, because if you're ranking anything off the first, you might get some traffic, but it's just hard to count on it. So I think really just starting with that audit and being honest with yourself, like, okay, what are the keywords I would like? What am I ranking for? Okay, now what can I actually start counting on in my weight class? Like, okay, if I stack 10 keywords that have only like 300 search volume, it'll probably be a less competitive field. And if you stack 10 of those, now you might have, 3,000 searches a month. So I think it is being realistic, but also you can't lose coffee. You're going to have to do that.
It's such a weird thing, because I kind of like add on to that little bit that Daniel was talking about there. In this video I made of like web traffic, web city like 2.0 video I made on YouTube, I talked about the cities of tea and coffee, or the towns of city tea and coffee where I can't rank for them, but I rank for Average Fellas Coffee. And then that ultimately funnels back to Average Fellas Podcast, right? Or Average Fellas. So I kind of like made this distinction of like, how do I play in the coffee zone and the coffee area? Like that game is a little bit different on social media. There is a little bit of like, you can kind of swing at that a little bit in social media, but like for Google, it's a little bit different. I can't rank for that. So I started doing was using a blog to produce keywords, or to like get Google to recognize keywords on location, and that it's craft roasted coffee or that it's small batch roasted, right? So I was kind of like in those markets, but also with location. So I've been trying to like create that kind of content to branch out around coffee, or to somehow associate coffee with Average Fellas Coffee, right? So it's becoming a weird like thing of like learning the keywords, but like also trying to produce content that I can track the keywords on, and then see which ones are responding better in my local area to get better local results, which has been a whole new game, which I've learned from these conversations that we've been having, guys, just to put that back out there. So there we go.
Well, Zach, I think I love the city metaphors and the like getting people to your party metaphors, and all that stuff really does make it feel tangible. And I love that your concept of digital place has sort of evolved into a concept of literal and digital place.
Yeah.
Sort of coming together as a way to, I don't know, bring the map together in a cool way. Like I think that's been some of the most fun stuff we've talked about over the last couple conversations.
Yeah, just to build on this too, I actually, before we were talking, I drew a little scale, and I have town versus city, right? And like, you can be the mayor of the, I don't know, coffee grounds town, right? And you're going to rank number one, right? But that's probably because nobody's searching for it. So it really seems like there's a balance between like, do you want to live in the city where you're going to be on the 5th page but still get visibility, or do you want to be like, number one for owning that word? I'm just so curious about what that balance looks like. And I think the city analogy is great. It's almost more like paying for a lease on a building in a city versus like being a mayor of, a town.
Yeah. And I think part of it, sort of keep on with Zach's example, is finding, by using like Average Fellas and coffee together, the search volume might not be high, but as you start to bridge out and more people start to discover who you are, and it, like, if you can drive sort of interest in a way that will drive up your volume, that is a whole nother approach. If you're just like, I am going to dig into my sort of branded keywords, and now I'm going to just like pump like crazy, like I'll go for ads, maybe just impressions, not even for clicks, just so people start seeing it in the world. And if you're trying to keep it local to like Riverside, you could just run those ads either through social or through Google or through wherever, just for like a small region. So you really can sort of shrink down and like, when you could become the coolest guy on your floor in that apartment building, or maybe the coolest guy on the block.
Right,
Just,
yeah.
slowly build that rep is definitely a way to do it is by really, because none of it's going to be complete magic, but it's just helping yourself win those battles that you can win. And some of those things are just, I'd imagine, differentiators, because you talk to some people about this and they have no idea what it is. It's like, keywords, why would you do that? I want to rank for these 5 things, and it's coffee, and it's buy my coffee and #1 best coffee. And it's like, oh yeah, that's great. How much money do you have? Okay, none. Okay, then no, you don't get to have that. But back to what you were saying about keyword research, there are some really great tools. I had also sort of looked this up before this call. So if you see me staring off at a different screen, that's what I'm doing. And most of it, like once you get into the keyword ecosystem and you start looking it up and researching what you can do, once you do it once, you don't really need, like, obviously it'd be great to do it every month or every week to keep auditing it.
Right.
But, all these programs are pretty expensive. So there's like Moz, MOZ.com. You can look up and get a free trial for, and just do all the work you need to do and then create a new email address next time to do it again. Like, because these systems are expensive. Like, if you don't have a company paying for them, like I can't get my company to pay for SEMrush. It's like $300 a month. It's magic, but it's $300
that's the
a
magic.
month.
That's the
like,
magic one. That's
yeah,
the
like
one
how much revenue do I need to be generating in order to justify spending $3,600 a year on a keyword tool? But that is how valuable it is. But also Google Ads, which you can get an account for free, has a keyword planner tool in there, which is also great to start doing some research. So just to make sure that anyone listening, we can give them like, go here, look here, get a free trial, work real hard for 7 days, and then delete it because it will ask you for credit card information on the other stuff. But Google is free because Google knows that the more dependent you become on Google, the better Google will treat you. But so yeah, Zach, with what you're doing, absolutely, and starting with those blogs and chaining them together will really help with site authority and with how Google interprets you. And hopefully, if one day Average Fellows ranks #1 page for the search coffee, I'll throw you a party, Zach. We're going to cruise.
Dude, that would be wild. To the being in the trenches, like, because this is really what it is. It's like creating a YouTube video and doing a blog post or even producing a podcast episode. It's like in the trenches of like the internet web system, right? So this is just laying foundations, and like I'm thinking like 5 years from now, I'm looking at a YouTube video, and I'm not looking at the present day view count, but I'm thinking 5 years from now that might be 10,000 views. I don't know, which means I pitched 10,000 times, or that some, at least, 100 of those people funneled their way through the website. So it's a bit of like, that's kind of like what's going on in the background, but I'm seeing that that's where the value is, like the time and effort of producing a piece of content, tagging it, and trying to build I think it's the thing I've said is a stronghold, trying to build a stronghold around a term or like a block. Like, this is my Average Fellas Coffee, Average Fellas, or Average Coffee one day. Average Coffee might be a huge game changer for me if I can get in there somehow, which would then be a lot of traffic, because people are going to looking for what's the average amount of coffee people drink, and somehow I rank for that. Like, that's the coffee game that like eventually that could change the entire game about like how many times people show up to look at my website. But building the stronghold has been like my thing, and I've been looking at keyword planner and using that quite a bit. That's kind of been like the tool, the go-to, and Google Trends, and trying to see like, how can I create something relevant on YouTube that might be searched 1,000 times in the next year. So it's becoming such a weird world to live in. It is strange. And I'm trying to identify more keywords that would help solidify my brand. And that's kind of been like, it's taken a while to understand the concepts, but what we're talking about here has been the eye opener to like, locking down this part of my block, or trying to create content that would somehow reinforce that part of my block. So
yeah, and you got to carry people through sort of the stages of the customer journey, right? So like initially there's like discovery, right? So what do they see? Okay, they're probably going to find you through social media or through podcast platforms or through those places where you're available for content and people are actively looking for it. Google might be some of the harder battles to win, but the ones where you do win, people will search something that is relevant to you, get served up your website, and then click into it, and now they're on your page, and now they're moving from discovery to consideration. So it's like, how, where do you want to put your efforts? I think for most people, it's like just put it up front for discovery, because like if you do it well, the consideration steps I think will follow. But it's definitely like, you're fighting for impressions first, right? Then you're fighting for like likes and clicks, and then you're fighting for comments, and now you're fighting for someone to like stay on your website for more than 10 seconds, and now you're fighting for them to click add to cart, and now you're fighting for them to actually fucking pay for it and then finish it, and then not cancel it before they get it. Like, you're right, so it divides up so quickly. But I think all that consideration stuff is really where you can do a lot of the work. But if you have the keywords and everything in place, like, you do need the ecosystem ready, so that when people do start showing up and do start searching average this, average that, that you might start wrapping them in, and that when they get there, then you have to worry about like, on time on site to close and how many people are closing, and like, oh, do I need to pay $5 more a month so I can have automated abandoned cart emails so I can recapture like 10% of the people, so it's that whole
that's such a and I know I've like definitely like trying to in this, understand this industry better, like understand that there is an entire like department in Walmart dedicated to like getting the bounce rate down, and there's an entire department in Walmart that's like, let's try and email market these people we lost on this end, and it's super targeted, and you're like, or there might be like one guy who's like focusing that campaign, but still, like, it's just like, wow, there is an entire like different game to web traffic, and it's insane.
Yeah, and oddly enough, Walmart is one of the worst at it. They resist everything. They're based in like Arkansas, like they're pen and paper for a long time. Like Walmart's actually super, like when Amazon really rose to ascendancy, like Walmart didn't know what the fuck to do and still doesn't know what to do. They're trying so hard. They've definitely hired like fleets, like legions of young people who know computers. Like, please fix this for us. Amazon's kicking our ass. And I'm sure they're doing better now than they were, but that's, sorry to diverge there. But one thing I did want to follow up with, so I'm taking notes here. When you had mentioned your blog, I just wanted to carry that through a couple extra steps, just for anyone who's less familiar. This might be a little redundant to tell you guys, but some of the just basic stuff you can really lock down when you're using keywords in creating a blog post is to make sure that your headers, your H1 and your H2 contain keywords, are short, are relevant. You've got a couple of them throughout. You don't want your paragraphs to ever be too long. And you want to have like 1,000 to 1,500 words. Like, it's got to be a significant chunk of text. Some people think they can just do the blog game with like overgrown tweets. That's not what it is. And then also making sure your metadata, the little sub descriptions in there, also contain your keywords. And you can get a little, like, once you start writing SEO stuff, you'll be like, oh, this is absurd. Like, I'm just using the keyword every other line. Like, there's some artistry to it. Don't do that. Using synonyms for things are okay. You want like 3 to 5 occurrences of your keyword like throughout, or whatever keywords you're trying to play with. So really just making sure they exist in there, I think is a best practices thing for other people who would be listening to this. And Google understands what synonyms are. So like, it knows, I'm trying to think of another word for coffee, but it knows like craft and like local, like it will start associating these things together. I managed to not give a synonym in the time I was talking about synonyms, so I'm going to be haunted by that for the next 12 hours at least.
That's funny. So, Anybody want to toss anything out? You want to toss anything else out there, Mark, or did we get a chance to like kind of hit on whatever you were, wanted to see? I'm just
The only other thing I would ask Daniel and you too, Zach, like how important do you think intent is when it comes to developing like your topic cluster? Like this is my theme. These are the keywords that are, ranking the high. This is what's bringing the people here, specifically the keywords, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm curious about how do you put yourself in the position of like the user searching for something specific? Like I wrote down like how to start a podcast or how to start what you're doing, Daniel. Like if somebody searched how to start an online comic, they might mean like, how do I set up the website? And that's the results that they're actually looking for versus like, how do I draw page one? So do you guys have anything to say about I think the word is intent. Like what is the intent of the user and how important is that to think about when you're developing your strategy?
I think it's huge to be considering. It's definitely important. You can sort of start with just like be good, be useful, like just to make sure you're serving up, like sort of no matter what someone's intention is, that you're not wasting their time. Because nowadays you're competing with literally everything at all seconds of the day for someone 10 seconds of attention. So yeah, I think you can just start with like making sure that whatever you're putting out there is at least to someone sort of inherently useful. If you're just sort of putting out sensationalized stuff, then you have to, really tie it to a trend or something or to an outcome. Then you're sort of fighting in that arena. But I think also targeting specific stuff for intent, like your social media posts, you can just be like, buy my coffee. But you might not have as much luck with that as like showing how good your coffee looks, like sort of Zach, what you're doing with some of the photography, or a slow motion pour of the coffee. Like maybe someone sees that and now they're triggered. They're like, oh man, I need some coffee right now. So it's hard to say like what will get them to actually click through there, and whether or not that will lead them to buy. But I think one of them is sort of selling just like the idea of Average Fellas, and the other one would be like, please buy my coffee. I have a subscription, buy it now. And there's a lot of steps in between that. So you could, like, I think, Zach, you've done some YouTube videos sort of like comparing your coffee to other coffees, which is a great thing to be doing. So you can sort of ride in the wake of some of their traffic. If someone searches like Blue Bottle or Starbucks, just to name some big ones. So I think a general rule of thumb, to try and answer your question here, Mark, would just be whatever content you create, make sure it is to some degree useful or entertaining, or that it can stand on its own, but then to fold intent into it and be like, okay, right now I'm having a hard time at the top of my funnel. I need more discovery. I need people to be seeing my stuff. It doesn't, like, I'm not quite where I need to be yet in order to get them to like start, like I don't have the whole community yet to start pitching them on other things. So I'll be putting things out there. Like the podcast is great for that, I'd imagine. Is you just have these huge chunks of content that people can sort of come at and listen to, and then all the social engagement around that. But yeah, I think at every level it is a little different. So even when it's like, how would you get people to listen to the podcast versus how would you get people to buy coffee, I think are two very different battles. And I don't think I've quite given you a great answer, but I think it's a tricky question ultimately, and it's very specific to what people are doing themselves.
It's in the intent has here, like there's when you're doing, like, for me, I'm trying to get my offer in short and sweet, and I'm not trying to like make the big deal about the coffee when I'm on the podcast, right? So when I pitch, it's less than a minute, so I'm not wasting somebody's time. And that way they know that, like, hey man, like I have something in return. If you enjoyed this, you want to support the podcast, and you can jump in the coffee club. I'm such a fan of coffee. I just wanted to put this out there in the world. And now if you enjoy my content, sub to this coffee subscription. That's part of it. It's sort of kind of like a Patreon sort of idea, but I didn't want to break into the Patreon world. I want to sort of run it myself and manage it myself, and I thought doing it this way might be better. But but being on YouTube, the intent is there too, where it's like, hey, like I'm creating content where it's like unboxing videos, because I know that there's traffic around there, and I'm not lying to anybody. Like, this is the average fella's gimmick, is like, hey, we're learning this, and we're showing it to the world. And why am I making unboxing videos? Because there's traffic there. And I have a coffee subscription. I'm learning about subscription and scaling it, wanting to scale it. So why not buy subscription boxes and see what they're doing? So it all kind of works together in the ecosystem. The intent is there. When people start watching the content, they're starting to learn, like, the overall idea about it is like super like meta. It's so weird. So it's a very hard sell. It's a very hard sell. Like, you got to get somebody into your ecosystem, and by doing web solutions, and being called average fellas, it's like trying to break down the walls. There's like some stigma about doing something online. You have to be smart. Mm-hmm. You have to be a genius. And I'm like, hey, well, you can learn these things like the way I'm learning it, and we're putting it out there in the universe, and then we're tracking our progress, and we're going back at it with a new strategy. So there is the intent.
And there's a lot of elitism in those fields, sort of oddly enough, and pretension with coffee and with web stuff, which is sort of interesting. So yeah, I feel like for you, Zach, really just kind of breaking down those barriers is some of the best, most interesting stuff, which is great. Because yeah, you come across so much nonsense in both coffee and digital marketing.
Yes, so it's like let me expose the gimmick to you guys, and along the way, like my sister is having really huge success with this Instagram thing that she's doing, and it's because I've learned some things on how to like post something on Instagram and make it like target the audience specifically. This goes back to the reels, right? The intent with the reels too is like learning that I can't serve up a piece of content without serving that audience, and that's where there's the intent right there, is like, how do you best serve the audience to be one, that they love it, they love the content, and it's relevant to them. Because I can't like serve coffee to web solution dudes. The idea, there's no intent there. That's what I'm fishing for, trying to get them to buy my coffee. But if I was like, hey, this is how you craft a custom button on Google Sites, and then they go to my website and they're like, oh man, he's selling coffee there too. Wow. There's the little bit of that. That's what I kind of feel like. That's how the intent is there, but also the offer's there, the soft offer at least.
Yeah, you're in a weird place, Zach, where your existence is like proof of concept, and like it's all wrapped in, like you'd mentioned, sort of a weird meta way.
Yeah,
where it's like this is the podcast come to life, and of course we're selling you a coffee subscription. Like, why would you be surprised by that? Look at what we're doing. Which is kind of interesting. So your own website is like, look, we did this and now we're offering it to you. So you are your best sort of review. It's like if people get to your website or your social or see things and they're like, oh, this looks great, then immediately everything you're offering is given a little more heft. It's like if you go to, this is less prominent now. This is definitely dating myself, but for the last like 5-10 years, you'd go to some websites and be like, holy shit, how does this exist? Like this like 1990 Windows 97 looking thing. Like, what is this doing here? I think Wix and Squarespace and other places really did away with that problem, but that used to be a thing. I remember going to websites and be like, oh no, I'm not buying this. Like before Amazon completely dominated the ecosystem. But yeah, you gotta look the part for sure, and I think Average Fellows is killing it there. But what would be, maybe not for this call, but for a future call, it almost feels like we should set up or take like a real example, or like invent a fake company and like walk it through the steps of like what this could look like, and like, okay, so here's your step one: build the foundation to your city or to your apartment or whatever metaphor we end up going with. And just like, okay, now you've done all that, like, here's social, like, here's how to engage with the discovery phase, the consideration, the action, and just sort of flush it out a little more. Sorry, I finally had some like caffeine and my wheels are now turning.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know if like some of the content I'm trying to put on YouTube is like those are the thoughts come to life, right? Where I'm like, hey, how can I explain this on like a Jamboard and like try to just throw it out there, right? So like for sure, I'm gonna go back to listen to this, try to pull a nugget out of it that like I can see like, okay, this is what. Let me explain this. Let me show how this works, or try to like put this out there to expand the I guess like the reality of like how it works. I don't know how to
I think I get you.
Yeah, so it's just one of the things too, like, so going back to like one of the things that you talked about, Mark, you were talking about like trying to like capture like trying to ride a wave of traffic with whatever's trending. So that sent me down the idea of like, well, how do I figure out what's trending? And then I came across Google Trends. This is changing the game now. This is like giving me a target of like where what the value of this keyword is, or this content's going to be over the next 6 months. So if I invest in this now, what's the potential click-through rate on this word, or like search word on this word? But then also I can then look at December and know that this word coffee is going to start trending in October, November, December, because it's winter time, where I may have not have thought of creating content around that, so like in the discussion of talking about like how do we track trending things or whatever, I know you're talking about like creating like this cool like Python script to understand Twitter. I'm not that advanced yet, but like I was like, how can I figure that out? How could I break that down for a second? So I think the first step for me is like looking at maybe trying to like look at a few words that like coffee, and looking at how I can create content that would follow a monthly or follow a yearly planner according to that trending word too, and seeing how that works with web stuff, web solutions, if there's any overlap in those seasons or something, which in Christmas there will be.
And it's great, especially with something as well defined as coffee. Like the trends you can look up will have stood the test of time, because they'll have been been working with them for years and years and years. But I think back to what Mark was saying, when you're planning that out, like to have clusters of keywords, to have these sort of topic clusters to focus what you're saying, and to make sure that you're working with that, so you're always sort of strengthening your inbound game. Because a lot of what we've been talking about today falls under, inbound marketing. Like, what can you do so people can find you and come to you, more so than like how much money do I have to pay to get 1,000 people on my website that matter. So it's like, if you can do this and really lock this down, like this is, I think, where people's efforts should be up front. And then it's like, okay, once you've done that well for some time, have a proven track record, you've tested. You've done you've had some bad ideas. You've tested them out. You've gotten rid of them. You've cleared out the cobwebs. You've tried some dumb stuff. You've done a twerking video. You've failed. You've cried. Now you're ready. Now you've done it. You've seen the needle move a little bit. All of this stuff, all this inbound stuff, can take a lot of time. You might not see change week over week, but if you look, hopefully month over month, 3 to 6 months later, that you're in a different sort of bracket, or at least have moved significantly upward, or up and to the right.
Definitely, man. That's kind of been like with the Google Analytics for me right now, trying to like maximize the average time the user stays on page, or the specific pages that they stay on. And I keep going. What it makes me aware of is like how much information am I serving them, and how valuable is this to the user? Because then I also look at retention too with the podcasts and stuff. So there's all these little pieces to it, that like pieces to the puzzle that you have to sort of solve and be like, how do I maximize the performance of this? Which has been a whole new like world that I've absolutely love to getting into, and like blowing my mind. Like what can you physically do? And like the landing page of like when people first like show up and like what's here, like I've seen that, like however I design that page, I've seen like those numbers change like dramatically sometimes, where I'm like, whoa, that's insane. So it's just a weird world to be living in.
Well,
it's
and something that can be important to figure out is if you go into, I'll just say the path, maybe that will help. But if you go into like behavior in Google Analytics and like site content, all pages, view full report, you can filter by exit percentage. So you can see like, oh, is there one page that they leave from all the time? Like, is the exit rate of this page 100%? Like, okay, what is wrong with this page? Everyone that goes there leaves the website. Or you can start like narrowing it down. Like sometimes you find, that you can forget while you're architecting the site that there will be these little dead zones that like someone can go into a gallery and there's no easy button to go back, and it's easier to leave the site than to continue digging. Another great system, I don't know how expensive it is Hotjar, which is a little script you can install on your website, and it tracks, like you can see how people engage with it. Like it will record their sessions, so you can sit there and watch hours and hours of people using your website.
Wow.
And clicking around. And when you see real people using it, sometimes you're like, oh man, people are dumb. I got to change this. The button's got to be bigger. That's got to be no button, less text here. This page scrolls too much. People don't have the attention for that. I got to move the call to action up higher. I'm really curious how expensive Hotjar is. If there's a free trial.
Oh, I got to jump off.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate you joining the call, man.
But yeah, I would recommend, if it's expensive, I feel bad, but at least getting into Google Analytics and being like, okay, what are the exit rates? And then you can start auditing your own sort of stuff. I feel like I've used the word audit too much. You can start digging into the data and analyzing it. But yeah, no, your site's changed radically over the last couple of months. It's looking fantastic.
Dude. There's a lot of stuff that's been going into there that's, having to like take into consideration, because I was thinking about building a whole entire studio site, right? But
yeah,
it's just a little hard to kind of like do a whole entire second one, launch an entire second campaign, right? So it's like, if I'm already talking about web solutions, I need to like maybe change that to studio solutions, which I think is the next step, which is going to evolve, right? Because I think that's more of the stuff that I'm like have more expertise in, is actually like, actually manifesting something out there. That's more of my thing. So the web stuff is it's all incorporated into this production house sort of idea, because that's what you have to do to be competitive today, man. If you don't know how to put a website together, it's insane. Like it's just it's crazy.
And I understand that it is now easier than it has ever been, but for anyone that's, I think, dug around in any of those sort of Wix type places, sometimes it's like too simple, and it can be incredibly frustrating at times. So like actually like dealing with it and putting it together well, because now the version of like the Windows 97 website is like getting somewhere in just like the most boilerplate Wix template you've ever seen, and it's like you fuck this. which has been like a huge eye opener to me too, because there's a lot of stores that I've seen that are like way bigger names on something like a Shopify website. I'm thinking like, wow, I can definitely create a website that looks better than a Shopify website. Definitely. And like these people are they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. So who am I trying to prove? What am I trying to prove to myself? Right. I don't have to be absolute best, but if some time and investment and design can be like the strong points that I have that I focus in on, right? Like what can I use my design elements to like elevate what I'm doing? And that sort of kind of like plays into it all together. But it's also, part of it is like, building the platform, because it's part of the business. It becomes this thing where it's like, I can like, who's an artist out there who needs to get something done, who needs to get an album cover done. I actually just had an offer for someone talking about doing an album cover, and I was like, well, dude, I can take portraits and I can do a lot of Photoshop stuff, so let me get a crack at it, so that's a job that came up that's manifested out of this website, right? So that's kind of my dream is, right, if I could, this is my own self-sustaining my own business, and I can use my creative ability to also do something for somebody else, or even show them how to do it. It's turning into a world of its own, and I think there's something here. That's the only reason why I'm getting super excited about it and digging in even more and learning these things, like how to
a campaign, on trying to get to rank for a certain keyword is, to me, it's the game of the century now. Like this is where it's led me to, where I'm like, there's nothing more exciting than trying to like dominate in something on this. It's like a game. It really is like a chess match. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. It's a battle, and I feel like I'm coming at it from a couple different angles, so it's almost more fun to talk about the other stuff, because I feel like all the prep work you can do and starting and just whenever there are those like easy things that you can just do a little better, like make the site better, make this better, like that's a place where there are a lot of little victories to win, and that feels really good. And then once you get everything to a place, then it's like the real uphill work starts. And I feel like I've just got a lot of uphill work ahead of me right now. But hopefully, we gotta, because for Average Files, you use Google Sites.
I use Google Sites. It's a free platform to build on, and then I just pay $12 a year for my domain.
Nice.
And then
we just went with the cheapest one we could find, which was like Weebly, which is not something I hear about ever. So I've been thinking about transitioning off of Weebly. So maybe Google Sites is something I'll need to look into, because we're getting up close to needing to redo some stuff. So
I mean, it's
so much work.
I know how to like turn that thing inside out. It's crazy. Like I've definitely done some crazy things with it. Like, and it's a simple interface to use to build. It's a simple platform to use, which I'm already like, I love Google so much. I'm like becoming a Google slave myself, just becoming this thing. And I couldn't ask for a better tool, because it interfaces with YouTube and Google Drive. So there's so much, like I just have to take pictures on my phone, upload it to Google Drive. I can upload it straight to the website there if I need to. I can do things that are just, do graphics on my computer, upload to Google Drive on my computer. I can, swap pictures in and out directly from the drive. And so there's a lot you could even stack Drive accounts and associate them with the same website. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this. And then that's why the YouTube channel is becoming such a cool like little tool, because you can embed those into your Google Drive, into your Google site, which, and I think for a small business, like somebody out there who's like, who has a small, like, I don't know, whoever has even restaurants could build an amazing website on this, an amazing website.
If a restaurant has survived the entire pandemic without having their fucking menu easy to find, I'm impressed. The amount of places I've looked up where I'm like, how can I not through any system find what you sell for food? Like, this is how this works now. Please put it there.
Exactly. So that shows me there's a market for this. There's a market for Google Sites, so it's just becoming more of a thing. And there's a few people that are in the following, in the audience, that are, they're strictly coming back because of the Google stuff that I talk about, the Google site stuff, little Canva, like free creation stuff, because it started off like that in the beginning.
Canva's huge. Canva is probably for like 90% of people all you need. It's like, if you need Adobe, like Adobe's the shit. It's super powerful. Once you start knowing how to use it, I think it's a fun series of programs. Even when I hate them, I still have fun playing Adobe.
Yeah.
But Canva being free for like 90% of the population, like just go use Canva. It's great. It's easy to do. They have so many damn templates and things. Like, I can't recommend that enough, even though I do not personally use it. But yeah, I'm looking at Google Sites now, and I'm thinking about, I got to look into how to transfer my domain over. But I'm wondering, like, if it's easier for like Google Tag Manager with Google Sites, if it just like understands things better, so you can.
So that's the thing that I haven't completely dived into yet. I started my Tag Manager account. I haven't dived into that yet. Baby steps for me. That's probably but I did get like there was like a key tag that I needed to put on my website and like load it into the header. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but I started it. Didn't quite finish that yet. But I need to keep working through that. But it's just, for me, it's like I'm even listening to the Google podcast and on their YouTube channel, getting as much as the even listening to their office hours, because there's so many little nuggets in there on like how to like, you know, like for me, I have 2 different cities, 2 different towns listed on my website now, and they're 2 different pages because the studio is located somewhere completely different than, you know, where my actual website is. But I'm actually looking at the traffic and I'm seeing that there is an increase, you know, local traffic like zone now. And I'm learning these things from just listening to the office hours, like, you know, where are you going to put your text at on your webpage, you know, and stuff. And then actually watching, like 3 weeks later, watch me rank differently or watch the description change and it be like, whoa, that is crazy. So Google's pretty good on that. It responds pretty quickly.
Okay. Because basically with Tag Manager, it's mostly just kind of building out actions on your website that you can track, so like events, and it can just help for building out like a bit of a funnel. Because what is your e-commerce done through?
Through PayPal.
Through PayPal. Okay, but that's just all natively on Google Sites.
So basic, no, so Google Sites they have an embed option for you. And the thing about PayPal is that they will give you an HTML code. For any, you can create different buttons, you can create different, you know, buy through menus, like the subscription, or like a paywall where like once you pay a certain dollar amount, a downloadable file will be sent to you. So there's different like variations of these different little functions that you can get a code for, an HTML code for from PayPal. You can take that to Google Sites, you can embed it in there, and then it'll give you several options on how the embed will look on the page. Sure. And then you can kind of choose from there.
I'm playing around on your site as we're talking. So yeah, it is just sort of immediate purchase. Okay. I say that like I haven't bought the coffee.
Yeah.
I've definitely filled this out once. I guess I just didn't think about it.
So, you know, it's definitely, it's a cool little, it solves a problem that I think the average user, or the person out there that wants to create some sort of e-commerce part to their website, it demonstrates it on my website, right? Like, hey, like we can put this on your website. You can do this to your website. Like if you need to put like something out there's more buttons available. The coffee subscription was born out of that. I mean, what I don't know what else to sell, man. I love coffee. So, you know, so these little pieces have to, you know, I'm in my process of learning how to put something together out on the internet. This has been a part of it, right? So if I can prove my sales track record or whatever, I'm scaling subscriptions, you know, that information is valuable to people out there. And so learning it, bringing it to a podcast and showing other people, hey man, this is how we can sort of strategize or create a campaign to help or support or even launch that for you. That's my goal.
Oh yeah. That feels like a great
It does. Anyways, man, I think we've been chatting here for about 45 minutes, almost 50 minutes here, man. Hey, I really enjoyed the talk, man. Next week though, or next time, not next week, but in a couple weeks, every other week we'll continue to have this chat. I want you to bring a question to the table, man. I feel like you've been given a lot of knowledge bombs, and like, you know, I'm trying to like help you out here and give some of my practical advice. But next week, if you want to bring a question to the table, and we'll definitely answer yours first, and we'll get to that one because I know Mark has last time we chatted, I felt like he got like half a question out, and we just kept talking. So it's like, wait, what was the rest of it? So this time we'll definitely give you a shot to just go ahead and throw yours out there, and then like see what we can throw at your question if we have any valuable information that might help you, man. But,
definitely. It'll probably be about the comic, because I think that's probably more applicable to most people, more so than like an enterprise level SaaS company for HR solutions.
Well, speaking of that, I also have a contact for a regional sales director for a point of sales system. Definitely the kind of guy I want to get on the podcast to join the chat, because he's got a lot of good techniques on like different, tracking different offers and like what an offer can do to your traffic, like changing maybe it might be a soft purchase at first that then opens up to like a deeper commitment to something, right? So these are the kind of things that he might bring to the table, which I'm hoping for. So keep your fingers crossed I can get that guy here to do it.
Yeah, that kind of thing's always fantastic to have, is just because that's probably what most people's issue is online. Isn't so much about, it's just about selling things, like we need to make more money. How do we make more money using the internet?
Yeah.
We thought this fad was going to go away, and now 40 years later it hasn't.
Dude, I know, right?
But yeah, so that's something I'm definitely looking into myself, is now that like the comic is almost real, we're looking at like, oh fuck, these are our margins and these are the fees we have to pay, and this is what we're selling this on, and this is how much all of our damn shipping materials cost, and like, okay, how many of these things do we have to sell to make enough money to make another comic? Because currently Rosin the Big Man is on the free money train, which is not an easy train to stay on.
Yeah. Dude, tell me about it, man.
Yeah, we got the funding from Big Tobacco, which is crazy to me. But then even like we signed up for the bank account, and it's like, leave this much money in the account and you get $300. We're like, yeah, free money. And we signed up for PayPal the other day, and they're like, here's $5. And we're like, to the fucking moon we go.
Dude, that's the way to go, man. I think you can live in the PayPal ecosystem and get a subscription model going for your comic book, dude. Like, imagine like if you can scale that yourself in-house somehow, you get 10,000. If you get 1,000 people subscribed to your comic book, that's the world right there. Like,
yeah,
that's 1,000 people reoccurring, who probably love the comic book, who are invested in it somehow. I mean, obviously I'm going to be, once, if we can build a subscription like website for you to launch a comic, dude, like I'm about it.
Yeah, no, we're absolutely trying to figure out because a lot of our initial plan or a lot of our current plan is to outsource as much of it as we can to Amazon. Even though Amazon is evil and we should not do that. It's like Amazon's internal ad tools can be real effective for something like a comic book. So we got to figure out how much, like, what can we sell on our website that's cool and sort of exclusive, so that we're making a bunch of money on something that has a super high margin. So like, can we make like some sick posters, like some really cool stuff? Like those aren't that expensive to make, whereas like hoodies can get a little expensive. Like some stuff gets expensive. So it's like, how can we bring people cool stuff that's cheap to make, that helps keep us sustainable? Because artists are fucking expensive.
Yes, yeah.
And I have not been paid for the comic yet, so I'm hoping to make the comic successful enough so that it can pay me. So working for free for 6.5 years now. So.
Dude, yeah, man, it's a labor of love. Definitely, man. And the one thing I can say though is like I'm excited for like every step of the way. Like I'm excited for seeing it go every step of the way, man. So we're gonna keep.
Oh, yeah, and when we actually launch like a real website that has like meaningful analytics, I should start recording some stuff and like actually have like, this is what we did on Instagram, this is what we did here, this is like, that would probably be useful and interesting to see, like actually getting into some of the data. Because sometimes it can be hard to have some of these conversations without like sort of scrolling through a bunch of different dashboards and screens, like, this is what we're talking about specifically. And this is, you can see here that the data is actually moving. Hopefully with the comic it does move. Hopefully it can be a good case study and not a bad one.
Right, dude. I know, man. That's another thing too. Like that's another thing why I want to create this content, is because like some of this stuff is just not out there. It's just not out there. Like the conversation that we're having, I don't know, I haven't found resources that talk about, get in the chat and doing this kind of stuff yet, but like I'm thinking that, I'm sure there's a new platform called Clubhouse. I'm sure that's probably taking place now, but my thoughts were just like, like I need to somehow get create a place where answers can be discovered, and the listeners also kind of get this sense of hope that, hey man, like there's a nugget of gold in there that might lead to the next breakthrough in the website or whatever. So that's kind of like what it's been like. That's the way I've kind of looking at it, right? But at the same time, like, me being the content creator kind of dude, I feel like sometimes maybe my nuggets are a little bit more not necessarily as golden yet, but I will tell you that these Instagram reels, man, I'm unlocking some things there. It's becoming a wild ride, man.
I'll have to ask you some more questions about that, because Josh is in like Wyoming for the next 5 weeks, so it's like, as soon as you told me sort of the Instagram reel stuff and I did some research, I'm like, oh, this would be great, like for like time lapses of drawing or something.
Yeah.
And now he's gone, and I can't just be like, Josh, film yourself drawing. He spilled wine on a page last night. That son of a bitch.
Oh no.
They're all originals. Now one has a wine stain, so we'll auction that off on Kickstarter.
Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Wow.
Yep.
Anyways, man,
I got a meeting here in 6 minutes, so I got
sure. Definitely, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining the podcast, man. Like always, we'll catch up again, man, for sure.
Oh yeah, and next week I will have some questions, because I live in such a specific corner of this data universe now that even for me, all this shit with like Roz and the Big Man is I'll keep everything like. So I have some questions.
Sweet,
we'll try to
man.
move it back to that direction, and get Mark talking a little more.
Definitely, man. Awesome. Hey, man. Well, anyways, May the 4th be with you, dude. May the 4th be with you, man.
Oh, that's why it's coming out tomorrow. Okay.
Exactly.
My whole world has been turning into Star Wars advertisements, and I'm like, oh, damn, you know what I am. You know what I am inside.
All right, man. Well, I'll catch you later, bro.
Okay, have a good one.
You too. Anyways, that concludes our conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. Once again, drop by the website, www.averagefellas.com, for your specialty craft roast coffee. Or if you need a graphic or website, we can help you with that. That's what we do. We're in the business of web solutions, studio solutions. You heard it here in the podcast first, guys. We're taking it back for the Average Fellas, guys. We're trying to learn some things on the internet, so that way we can live the life that we've always wanted. You know what I'm saying? Do something that we enjoy, do something that we love, something that we're passionate about. Serve others, and make a living doing it, and that's kind of my dream. So here we are doing the podcast, doing what I love, trying to be useful to the world out there. All right, guys. Hey, take it easy.